The unemployment rate is currently at an historic 40-year low at 3.7%. What does this mean for the economy and the nation? Carolee McGrath sat down with John Rogers, a professor of economics at American International College in Springfield, to learn more.
Well, this is really the lowest that we've seen probably in 50 years. It got close to that in the 90s, but you really have to go back to the 60s to see that. And when you think of it, it's a great story, because not that long ago we were looking at roughly 10% unemployment in 2008, 2009, 2010, that period. It was a very difficult period for our country and obviously for the people who were affected. So it's great that people are back to work, able to find jobs, and it's really, in effect, full employment, because there's always a certain amount of friction in the economy. People are moving from job to job, or they drop out for a period of time, or they're layoffs, but they get picked up by another employer. So that 3.7 is really, in effect, full employment.
Okay, so tell us some of the reasons behind it. Would it be the tax cuts, deregulation? What brought us to this point?
I would say those are definitely factors, but I think a good part of it is simply the business cycle or the economic cycle. We had a very, very severe recession globally, but it was very severe in this country, 2008, 2009. And historically, those recessions, which are financial crises, not simply a recession of overproduction and then inventories get rebalanced and it picks up again, but a financial crisis where the financial system just kind of falls apart. Those typically take about 10 years to work through the after effects. And so I think that's what we're seeing. We've finally gotten that behind us. And we also have some positive news, at least until recently, from overseas. The world economy is doing pretty well, so exports are strong. We've got a low interest rate environment, so there's money to be had for consuming and for investing. So all of those things, plus the tax cut, the deregulation, obviously help as well.
Talk a little bit about wages and how wage growth plays into this.
We really aren't seeing significant wage growth, and that's coming off of a maybe even 20-year period when, if you adjust for inflation, the average wages haven't really gone up very much. So that's one of the sort of the mysteries of this recovery, and I think there are a couple of reasons for it. One is, even though we have a strong economy, we really don't have that much growth in productivity. So productivity essentially means if productivity goes up 3%, you can afford to pay people 3% more and you don't have to raise your prices. If productivity is not going up, you can't really pay people more. And if you're in a competitive market, you can't raise your prices that easily. So I think that's what you're seeing as part of it. The other part is probably, even though the macro number is pretty good, there's still people who are maybe underemployed. They would like to maybe have a job where they can use their qualifications more. Maybe they're working fewer hours than they'd like. A lot of people are working 2 jobs. So it's still a tough economy for a lot of people, and there still is some slack in that sense in the market if you look at particular niches. So I think you're seeing that is holding back some of the wage growth.
And what are the sectors, I would say, with the greatest job growth or the greatest need for employers right now?
Well, I think they're the ones you would expect. Obviously, technology, healthcare, finance, knowledge workers generally are in high demand, people with technical skills. But I think what you're also seeing is a huge demand for, I guess the old term is the trades, right. Plumbers, electricians, welders, people who have a technical skill, and those people are in demand because manufacturing has picked up, but also construction, home building, all of these areas, there's a high demand for those kinds of people with those skills.
And that's a big challenge for companies to find those workers who have those skills, certainly in Massachusetts.
Absolutely, and it's something that's hard to train for, because you can't just hire somebody and train him to be an electrician in a short period of time. So those people who have the skills, the qualifications, the licensing, nursing, I think our hospital here, Bay State, is short a large number of nurses. So those are things that are putting a lot of pressure. That's the sort of the downside. There are a lot of sectors or businesses that are stressed because they're just having trouble finding the qualified personnel.
And so what do you think, how long will this unemployment, low unemployment last?
I think it should last for the duration, really. I mean, obviously, we're in a cycle where we're maybe going to see some pullback in the stock market and maybe a little bit of pullback in economic growth, but I don't think anybody's expecting it to go back into a serious recession the way we had 10 years ago. It may slow down. So I think it's something that's with us, the new normal, if you like.
So talk a little bit about the labor force participation rate.
The labor force participation rate, which measures simply the portion of the population over age 16 that's not incarcerated or in the military that's working, and that rate is down about 5% from the peak in the year 2000. So on the one hand, that's a little bit disturbing because it shows that there are people who just dropped out of the labor force. They aren't looking for work, so they're not counted as unemployed. They're just not in the labor force. Part of it is the aging population, so that explains a good bit of it. Another part maybe is, unfortunately, some people during this period of the recession and long periods of unemployment just sort of gave up. And a lot of people have kind of resorted to disability as a way to deal with that. So I think that's something that's still a concern, is just the percentage of people in the labor force. And obviously a shrinking labor force makes the country as a whole less productive. There are just fewer people working. So we're down from 67% down to about 62% of the population actually in the labor force. So that's one of maybe the concerns that we would have going forward, is that shrinking labor force. And that's something that, frankly, I understand why people want to do a better job of security at the border, but I think there is a problem if you cut back on immigration excessively. You could be putting a lot of stress on certain sectors of the economy that just need more labor and depend on immigrant labor: agriculture, meat packing. A lot of areas and services depend on immigrant labor, and we want to have that regularly managed in a regular fashion. But if you cut it back too much, and they're talking about maybe cutting down the number of immigrants by 50%, I think that could be a real negative for the economy.